Okay. Well, thank you so much for those of you who are listening in and those of you who joined live. We're very honored today to have a very unusual and special overachiever, Eric Dawson, who for over 30 years has been working to restore the social and environmental balance in a very unique manner. Eric, I'd prefer that you kind of share your story of the various organizations that you've started, and particularly the one that you've recently launched, and what is your big purpose? And I will go on mute so we can focus really on you.
I appreciate that. My mother would love that introduction. So on behalf of her, thank you. And feel free to interrupt me at any time. And thank you for having me on. Robert, you've been, I believe, at the forefront of a revolution that has been taking place that reimagines not just capitalism, but also the role that each of us play as individuals. So thinking both about the systems and individual players and how we work together to build a world that is healthier, fairer, kinder, safer, better, because we can't keep living as we have. And have a tremendous amount of gratitude for the pioneering work that you and your community have done to rethink models. So the most important thing to know about me is I was kind of a pissy kid growing up. I had some struggles in my childhood that made me quite angry. So I was an angry kid, and my sense is that those of us who experience trauma when we're young is we do one of three things. We internalize it, meaning we hurt ourselves. We externalize it, meaning we hurt other people. And some of us transform it. So I took those experiences and found my redemption in youth organizing. I went to a big public high school in the United States in a suburb of Columbus, Ohio, and got started organizing around disability awareness and inclusion. So in the United States, when I was in high school, they began mainstreaming students. So students who'd been kept in separate classrooms, separate learning environments, were now joining the regular education spaces. And as often happens when young people arrive who are different than the majority of the students, they weren't treated very well. So they were humiliated, made fun of, and that bothered me and bothered some of my other students. So we began organizing to change the culture of our high school, student to student, changing behavior about what was acceptable, and then create a program to teach every primary school in my school district. So having older students go and mentor younger students on how to treat one another and how to change some of that behavior. And for me, Robert, it was the first time I got to feel powerful, that I could change time and space, not in spite of being young, but because I was young. That there are things I could do as a 16, 17-year-old that in fact that the teachers and principal could not do. And that realization that I as a young person had agency changed my life. So I got a scholarship to go to college. I went to Harvard, and in my first semester there, worked with other students to um, basically create a program to teach other young people how to change the world. So the same experience that I got as a young person, I wanted to create that opportunity for other young people. And we began with a curriculum in the Boston Public Schools. And then I spent 30 years of my life scaling that all over the world, 166 countries, finding young people in their moment of obligation when they have an idea, they want to change the world, but aren't sure how to get started. And Peace First, the organization I founded that's still around today, found young people in that moment of obligation, had digital design tools, startup capital, and mentorship. So helping young people tackle everything from clean drinking water in Egypt to political violence in Kenya to employability in rural Colombia, helping young social entrepreneurs on those very first steps. So I spent 30 years growing and scaling that work. It was time for me to do something different. It was time for Peace First to have new leadership. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next. And I got very interested in impact that had scaled. So with some support from a management consulting firm that donated resources, We looked at impact that had scaled. Like what has changed the world over the past 120 years? So think the workers' rights movement that created the concept of the weekend, all the way up to the Arab Spring that reimagined countries, dozens of case studies. They found only one thing in common, and that is that each and every one was powered by young people. That young people sat at the center of every significant change, movement, progress that has made the world a better, fairer, kinder, healthier place. So we interviewed a lot of young people to understand why. And I say this as someone who's now in his 50s, and I still like to hope that I can be part of making change. What is it about being young? We found three things. So the first is that young people aren't stuck in silos of thinking. You know, a 17-year-old in Lagos, Nigeria isn't thinking, which SDG do I want to solve? Or what's my theory of change? All these rules and regulations that we put on innovation, they're maxed out of jobs or their schools are failing them and they want to do something. So the problem solution fit is really strong. The second is that they are risk takers. Um, they've got low centers of gravity. They're able to experiment, they're able to build, they're able to try things on. It's not a coincidence that if you look at the five largest companies on the planet, the average age of their founder was 25 when they started, right? Young people can take risks. And then the third piece is they're building new models of working together. They're not top down, they're bottom up, they're horizontal. They're imagining new ways of working that just fit the current problems that we have. So the good news, and I want to be really clear, there's some good news out there. I'll share the bad news in just a second. The good news is there are 2 billion young people on the planet right now. There are 2 billion people on this planet under the age of 30. They are the most entrepreneurial, most imaginative, most connected, most do-gooding generation we've ever produced in the history of the human race. The bad news is that 85% of them, by our estimates, 85% of them live in a capital desert. They're in a refugee camp in Jordan, they're in a favela in Rio, they're in a housing estate in Manchester. They've got no access to capital. And I mean financial capital, I mean social capital, I mean imagination capital. There are $700 billion given away philanthropically last year, and we estimate that less than 0.002% of that, less than 0.002% of that went to early stage youth-led social innovations. So what we have is a fundamental market failure. We know what changes the world, young people with lived experience, access to resources to get started, but that's not how the capital flows. And so what Rivet is the world's first micro funding platform for young changemakers through a network of on-the-ground partners. So think about places like the Red Cross, think about places like Scouts, the YMCAs. We find young people in their moment of obligation where they have an idea to change the world, but really nothing else. And we provide them with a very small amount of startup capital. We're talking under $1,000, right? Most of these are $200, $300, $400 just to get started. We are that very first yes that a young person receives when they have an idea, but not much else. And I talk about microfinance. It's really micro philanthropy. It's really a cash transfer. So it's saying to a young person, here's some money, try your idea out. Succeed, fail. We actually don't care. We just want to learn with you. What we're saying to young people is we trust you. You've got this. We want to give 1 million young people over the next decade, decade and a half, that opportunity to join the social innovation ecosystem. We model that 10 to 20% of those projects will work. They'll get some traction. They're then eligible for follow-on funding. So imagine $1,000, $2,500, $5,000, whatever they need to get to that next level of growth. And then we think 5% of those will be game changers, that we'll find thousands of impact unicorns. And the idea is to give them scale funding, 25,000, 50,000, 100,000, to get them investment ready for the existing funding infrastructure. So to connect that young person in Lagos with an idea, create a capital ladder so eventually they can get funding from impact investors, from traditional philanthropy. So we are creating opportunities for young people with lived experience to change the world. The other thing I'll share, which is the coolest part about what we're building, is how we're raising this fund. So imagine that we're pooling together a quarter, $500 million philanthropic fund that'll turbocharge the youth-led social revolution. This money, this fund, is going to be raised by young people themselves. Gen Z, Gen Alpha, as of 2020, controlled $3 trillion of consumer spending. Estimates are that by 2030, that will be $12 trillion. That is a tremendous amount of capital that young people control. Rivet has built a consumer brand that partners with the brands that young people love. So imagine a pair of Adidas trainers or a Spotify playlist or a Sephora beauty product, an opportunity for young people to shop their values, doing what they do every day. So Rivet is this dual market system where on one side we let young people change the world, and on the second side we are a philanthropic windmill that lets young people channel the tremendous wealth they collectively control as consumers to fund their own ideas. What I love about our model is we're not asking anyone to change their behavior, and we're building a flywheel. So brands market, right? Hundreds of billions of dollars every year to get us to buy stuff. We give them a better way to do it, where they get to move from charity to solidarity with the young consumers. Young people get to buy what they love. It's frictionless. Young change makers get resources. And what we're doing is we're collecting data. We take those data and we turn it to content and we give them back to our brand partners. So every time Adidas tells an incredible story of a young change maker, they're building their brand relevance for young people, right? This critical marketing challenge that they have. Rivet is getting millions of dollars of free marketing help. Young people are getting access to resources. Brands are signing up. Young people are being invited to go out and change the world so that every product, every Rivet product, every Rivet funded project, every story builds a larger and larger pie, all powered by young people themselves. So that's what we're building at Rivet.
And I had a couple of questions of the logistics. So these individual consumers, young or old, buy something. I get a percentage of that purchase if you have an agreement with the consumer brand flows to your organization. And then you make these micro donations to these startup entrepreneurs. Is that the logistics of how it works?
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So let's say there's a consumer who's also wealthy or wealthier than a startup. How can that individual put more money to work through Rivet?
So Rivet is a charity. We're established in the United States. We work globally. So we always accept donations from folks who love what we're doing and want to be part of it, both in terms of having a little extra money to give or a family foundation that's interested in seeing how we could work around a particular issue area or geography, or even a firm that wants to do better employee engagement and volunteering, where they're not just cleaning up a beach once a week
Mm.
or volunteering to clean up a park, but actually using their time and talents to mentor some of our young change makers. So we're building an incredible alliance of youth, people who care about young people, financial firms, investors, and then, of course, these amazing brand partners who help bring Rivet to life for consumers.
And I mean, there's lots of startup entrepreneurs or people who want to be entrepreneurs who maybe they shouldn't be entrepreneur. I'm not always convinced everybody has the resilience and the grit to be an entrepreneur. But everyone is encouraged to become an entrepreneur. So if they want to do that, how do they know that you exist? I mean, I was looking at your board. I mean, you have like super heavyweight marketing people over there. I was I thought Tim Cook was also going to be on your board. You have some really big heavyweights, but you're talking about mini micro enterprises, which is a different skill set than some of the people on your board.
It's such a great question. So one of the things I love about what Rivet's building, if you think about the entrepreneurship ecosystem and really the social entrepreneurship ecosystem, um, look, there are tons of prizes and pitch competitions and
Yeah.
accelerators, right? But you and I both know that's not step one in a social entrepreneur's journey, right? That's step 100. And what that means is for those young people who never have access to those spaces, they never get started. So what Rivet is doing is placing a lot of very small bets around a lot of young people and giving them an opportunity that I got as an 18-year-old Harvard student, right? The opportunity to be in an ecosystem where I was seen and valued and had access to resources. And so what we're building is the very top of the funnel to radically expand who gets to participate in doing that work. And then we're leveraging the $11 trillion youth development industry. So think about every aid worker, every teacher, every mentor, every coach. Those are the folks who are mentoring young people, right? So a 19-year-old in Lagos who has an idea to create a recycled electronica product so that kids can do their homework at night because they've got no lights.
Mm.
He doesn't need to sit down with Tim Cook, right? He needs to sit down with a caring adult who can help him figure out the very first step of his projects. And so that's where we leverage the resources of our impact partners like the Red Cross. I mean, the Red Cross, Red Crescent has 11, 12 million personnel across 198 countries. And so the beauty of that model is that we're leveraging that local talent to find, mentor, and support young people. And then on the branding side, we're getting to partner with an incredible group of global CMOs who know how to market. And so Rivet then sits very narrowly because we don't create or market products, right?
Mm.
Adidas, Nike, they know how to do that work. We don't actually give the money away, right? The Red Cross is literally set up to distribute funding. We're collecting this billions of dollars worth of existing value and aligning them all behind young people's visions for a better world.
But when you're talking of micro, they're not even loans, they're gifts of less than $1,000, which might go up to maybe a couple thousand or maybe 5,000 more. Um, that's a lot of, you have a very big ambition. You have a really big, you want to go really large. So you want to mobilize lots of people. And they need also help along the way, not just money, saying, hey, I've got this problem. And that's a lot to manage. I mean, how are you going to support those individuals apart? I mean, giving money, that's quick, easy here, good luck. But hey, Eric, can I call you at 3 o'clock in the morning? I've got this fire at our little factory over here. Can you help me with this?
What I love about what you're recognizing is financial capital isn't enough. Young
Yeah.
people need social capital. They need mentorship, they need tools, they need connections. And that's really the beauty of our local impact partners. So we did a wonderful project with the IFRC, with the International Federation of the Red Cross, Red Crescent, where we provided some capital to support projects around sustainability. We were funding, I think, 150. I think they got 10,000 applications or something close
Wow.
to that.
Mm.
Um, but the Red Cross, Red Crescent is set up to find and mentor young people, right? That's what they do, right? They've got youth development specialists. They can do this in multiple languages. So we provide some tools, but it really is leveraging this local expertise. So we don't need to be out there in every market. What we really need is using every aid worker, every educator, every coach, mentor. They become the mentors. And because these projects are really early stage, their needs are early stage as well, right? They need someone to bounce ideas off of. They need someone to help them talk to their mom about why they're not going to be an engineer. And so a lot of it is that deeply relational, deeply local work, and we rely on our partners to do that.
And I would imagine that, are you starting to allocate already, or this is still in development?
So Rivet is about 3 years old. We've already funded
Oh,
1,135
wow.
projects
Congrats.
all over the world.
Mm.
And they're breathtaking. One of our first grants went to this young man named Walter. We funded through Peace First, organization I used to run. Walter, as a young man, realized that his older sister had to drop out of school when she was 12 because she started menstruating, as every girl in his village has to do. Got married, had 4 kids while she was still a teenager. Walter wanted to interrupt that cycle. So he got $250, bought 4 of those pedal sewing machines, and began making reusable menstrual pads for every single girl in his village.
Mm.
And the cool part is it wasn't just the girls who were learning how to make those, it was boys.
Mm.
I went to visit him and I met he must have been 14, 15 years old. And I asked him, why are you making menstrual pads? And Robert, he looks at me like I'm the idiot. He's like,
Yeah.
menstrual health is my responsibility. Like, that's culture change. To have boys in rural Uganda understanding that part of their job is menstrual health. And those boys are going to grow up to be teachers and
Mm.
parents and spouses. And I mean, no disrespect when I say this, but that change doesn't happen when a group of girls in a Swiss boarding school put pads in a box and send them to Walter's village,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
that's true. That's true.
That's the kind of change that we are seeing.
But with you've done 1100. I imagine that you spent a lot of time, money in developing this massive research database of what works, what doesn't. Because I would imagine that, let's say, in 2 or 3 or 4 years, and you go from 1100 to 110,000 or more, a lot of things become, I mean, they're different cultures, but some things are universal. Why did this work? Why didn't that work? What are the characteristics of someone to be an entrepreneur? So have you created that system that you'll be able to share that with other philanthropies or donors or family offices who want to also do something more directed rather than through a fund?
I love that question for a couple reasons. So one is one of our core assets is going to be data. I mean,
Yeah,
ultimately,
sure.
we are a data tracking and talent and content play. So imagine a world where we have 1 million young people sharing their insights, their solutions to world problems. Imagine what that map looks like and the value behind that info, collective information. What are hotspots? What are ideas that are forming? How can we connect young people? That's going to be useful for governments. That's going to be useful for policymakers. That's going to be useful for brands. That's going to be useful for people thinking about talent and the future of work. It's an unprecedented set of data that we'll have that we'll be able to autonomize and be able to share. The other thing that's really interesting is the team that we put together. So Rivet is new and young. I've spent 30 years funding young people all over the world. I mean, hundreds of thousands of young people. My CMO, Christina, was one of the first hires at RED, Bono's organization
Yeah.
to help HIV/AIDS. Um, she understands how to build brand partnerships. Haifa, who's our chief impact officer, was part of the Tunisian Revolution, started her own venture at 19, was one of BBC's 100 Women to Watch. She's now 27. She's been a young social entrepreneur. So we have a tremendous amount of experience that the team brings to the table. And then everything that we're doing right now is testing and learning, right? So how can we give money away? How do we track data? How do we turn that data into content? And so what we've built internally is really a rapid learning system where every product we do, every project we fund, every story we create builds a bigger and bigger pie.
Have you ever spoken to Ernesto Ciroli? You know him?
The name's familiar, but I can't place
If
it.
you should write it down, Ernesto Ciroli. He's been doing kind of what you're doing, except the funding part, all in every continent in the world for the last 30 years. And, he will work only with, he will never be a kind of decided, okay, this is how you got to do it. It's got to come from the local entrepreneur. And these are many companies. One guy bringing chickens on his motorcycle to the market. And he might be a good contact because, I mean, you can also watch a lot of his TED Talks on YouTube. Nice guy, good friend, and he has a model that works because he always works with the local entrepreneur. It's got to be from them. They have to take the lead. It cannot be from a government. Oh, we have this program and you got to sign up. And he doesn't do it that way. It's got to be local. And he might be a good asset for content support, but also because he works with many aid agencies, universities, and things like that. Ernesto Ciroli. And do you know Kevin Starr from Mulago?
I do, yeah, I know Kevin.
I mean, I'm not too crazy about their model that it's always like it's gotta come through the mafia table, meaning one of my buddies has to know about this, and I always have problems with that. Why is it that only if this buddy knows about it, then it gets through, where most of the cool stuff is not known by your buddies? It's not on television. It's not on, on your platform. So how will all these institutions, these organizations, or even Carmen who's listening, how do they find you? And I would imagine you don't have 5,000 people working at Rivet, hundreds and hundreds of staff. It's a small organization. How do you find the time to get through? Because at a certain time, you're going to have to process this. And if it takes, a year and a half to get through for a couple of $100, it's not going to work.
Two really great questions there. One is how do we how do we sort through all the young people who might be interested, and then
Right.
how do young people find out about us? And um, and just to return to an earlier answer, this is the power of having what we call this network of impact partners. So these youth serving organizations who are our outreach and talent scouts. So we outsource on that first level of funding because again, when you're giving away $300, you want to have a
Mm.
real low bar to entry, right? You
Right.
want to make this super easy. Young people answer 3 or 4 questions. This isn't 30 or 40 pages. And we want to be able to get capital out the door quite quickly. And that's where we really utilize this network that we've built of on the ground partners. When we begin to think about second round funding, that's where we want to pay more attention. And so as we get impact reports from young people who've completed their projects, that's where we begin to use things like AI. Some of our content experts are volunteers, from a private equity firm or a venture capital firm to help us look at who should get second round funding. And then the third round funding, it's we're really kicking the tires because we're making some big bets behind those. So um, our engagement gets higher and higher. When I say ours, I mean my core
Mm.
team. The more funding that we're giving out, and also those numbers are much smaller, right? So this year, I think we'll give out 30 or 40 second round grants. So they're just much easier to manage than giving out tens of thousands of first round grants.
And how do you do? I mean, the boring stuff, the pipes question. A lot of these small donations, just like remittances, there's a lot of bank costs in transferring a relatively small amount of money from you're in the US in DC or wherever you are to Ecuador or to Afghanistan, or to Cambodia. How are you going to try to eliminate a lot of those. I mean, I always, get really upset. It's a goddamn email, a bank transfer. Why does it have to be so expensive?
Again, this is the beauty of our local impact partners. So take someone like the Red Cross, Red Crescent. They are set up to distribute funds. That's what they do.
Okay.
Right at local offices, they can move money, they can get money out the door. So we're building a really cool fund distribution infrastructure using the infrastructure that's already been built. So in that way, we're like a financial Uber, right? Uber doesn't
Mm.
need to pave roads.
Right.
They don't need to buy cars because that capital has always already been invested in the network. We're just capitalizing on that investment.
And how do you, I mean, it's all startup entrepreneurs are all impatient. So how do you process the request in a relatively short time? And if they're a young entrepreneur, they even have no patience at all, that they get an answer relatively quickly. And what is the percentage of being accepted or rejected?
It's a great question, and the
I
biggest
only have
challenge.
great questions here. I don't have any bad questions.
I'll let you know when a bad question comes
Okay.
around.
All right. I'm working on it.
You're doing well so far, Robert. We've given away we haven't given away enough money yet to really know where the bottlenecks are going to be.
Okay.
Um, So most of what we've been doing is running distinct campaigns. So we work with the Red Cross around sustainability. There's a call to action. There's a deadline. Folks get an answer quite quickly. They get the funding quite quickly. With Peace First, 48 hours is when they try to get money out the door when someone expressed interest. So think about what we're doing now, both on the brand partnership side and the funding use side, is running dozens of tests of the system, and not building too quickly, but building based on what we know.
Hmm. And um, there's no geographic focus, whether it's Latin America or Africa or Asia or Micronesia or North America. So it's quite global, and you're leaning on, in this case, Red Cross and probably some other organizations who might knock on your door. And the idea is that the first round would be 1,000 or less, up to a
That's
maximum of 1,000. Is that the idea?
that's right. All startups, I think, struggle with a breadth versus depth question. And we're no different. So, does it make sense to just fund, say, in the US
Yeah.
or to just fund in New York City,
Yeah.
and build a real deep sense of impact, case studies, and build a really tight relationship between consumers in one market and change makers in the market? Um, what we have decided is we want to do a mixture of both. So in our, we're only 3.5 years old. We just launched our brand about a year and a half ago. Um, we decided to fund initially quite broadly, so that we could understand how our system works in a lot of different markets,
Okay. Hmm.
and also have the case studies from a lot of different markets, because there'll be brands who will be like, oh, I just want to do this in this city, or I just want to focus on this geographic area. But we need to be able to show for the big brands, which is where the big money is going to come in, that we can operate globally. Now that we've done that work, we've particular focus in the US and the UK, because that's where a lot of the consumers are that we're focused on. Um, and because right now we're just growing our systems, some of our partners who are philanthropic partners, because we're geographically and issue neutral, we're talking to a funder in Latin America who wants to see, okay, how do we unleash the talent in Latin America? We're talking to a funder in the Netherlands who's like, can we help some of these young people who are feeling disconnected, even in a very wealthy country? So for the next couple of years, we'll be doing some deep dives, with some specific philanthropic partners, or brand partners.
Do you have I mean all of these hipsters spend half their time in Starbucks and other coffee places. Do you have any of these coffee conglomerates as part of your partners?
Not yet. We'd love to meet some.
Oh, yeah. There's an interesting one in Africa that they grow the coffee, but they're also creating a global brand around that. With a friend of mine. So I'll after this I'll send you the link about it. I mean, they're not Starbucks, obviously, but the idea is to empower, create a brand around purpose for this
Oh, wow.
coffee. And you do you have Adidas as a partner, or that's someone who you want to have as?
They sit somewhere in between. So we have an
Okay.
amazing senior leader at Adidas who's been helping us grow Rivet from the very beginning. We've been exploring a partnership using their IP
Mm.
in video games, but that's still at its early stages.
Okay. And in the gaming industry?
Similar, we're having some great conversations with a number of gaming platforms and game developers. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity there, but still early days.
So how okay, you've spent 30 years with the first organization. You've been spending a few years with this. You have a huge ambition, really going large, and you're still trying to convince your wife you're on the right path, that you will get this done, that it will happen. And so what is the big ambition with Rivet for the next 5 years?
So I think about organizations the same way I think about humans. They go through developmental stages. Um, we've spent the past couple of years building our brand. We have an incredible group of young people all over the world who are co-designers, co-creators, brand advocates, ambassadors for us. We've got great leadership both inside the organization and on our boards. We've built and tested the model. We've done a half a dozen brand partnerships that have brought money in that we've given out. So we know Rivet works. So the next 4 years, or at this point, 3.5 years. So by 2028, we should be profitable. And as a nonprofit, that means we'll have more money coming in through our brand partnerships that we'll need to
Okay.
spend. That's unheard of in the philanthropic world. Charities always need more money. We keep 10% of the revenue that comes in from our brand partners. That will be enough to drive our system once we're up to a certain level. So I think about where we are right now is we've built the rocket ship, we've tested all the pieces out. Now we need to get it into orbit.
Mm,
And so to do that, we need to build our brand. We need more young people to know that we're out there. That's our relevance for brand partners, and we need to build our data tracking system. So the ability to take data from a young person's project and turn it into content. Um, and then we need to just fund more projects. So we need to build our story base. So to do that over the next 3.5 years will cost about $10 million.
mhm.
And so what we're doing right now is building partnerships with foundations who want to see how a youth-driven solutions model can solve the problems that they care about. We're partnering with firms, particularly private equity, but not exclusively, who are interested in moving away from the one-day beach cleanup employee engagement to something that's more
Yeah.
meaningful. And then individuals and families. So we have a leadership council that has some of the smartest, brightest leaders from all over the world. They commit a little bit of philanthropic capital. They help mentor and coach and do design work. And then for those with teen, tween, young adult kids, there's an opportunity for the whole family to get involved. So we're looking to get connected to uh, foundations, firms, individuals, and then we're always trying to meet more brand partners, those who are the first in early adopters.
We have over 200,000 people listening to this. No, not really. There's a person, Carmen is part of the group listening live. She had a question. Do you consider second round funding to support young entrepreneurs that have an operating business so that it's up and running? Maybe you did the first round and the second round that is changing the world and just needs small amount of funding to keep going. Because As far as I understand, you do that, but that's not the focus at this time, correct?
So what I love about the question is getting that first yes is transformative, but for a lot of those young people, it's not enough. And so think about what Rivet has built is a capital ladder where we start with under 1,000 for a first round, lots of small bets, finding the best projects within there, and sometimes some external to our system, who then get a second round grant. We call it a boost grant, which is under 10,000. And then the third step is a scale grant, which is under 100,000. So
Oh, so you
we've
go
got
up that high. That's quite high.
yeah, so we've got this capital ladder. Right now, it's all designed as philanthropy, as philanthropic money. Um, we are beginning to think, particularly for the larger grants, whether there's an equity play in exchange or some potential um, opportunity for young people to pay that back, or for that money to get reinvested in the fund as a not-for-profit. The idea is to build the capital ladder in the ways and the moments that our young people need it. So I said we've done over 1,100 first round grants. We've also done 23 follow-on grants, and I think this year we'll do another 80. So we're really growing that piece of the business so that we can help those projects that have gotten some initial traction to grow.
Have you ever pitched to a foundation in the Netherlands called Doen, Doen?
No.
It's a lottery. It's the one of the biggest lotteries in Europe, postcode lottery. They've given away, I don't know, 10 billion, 15 billion, in grants. So they have annual grants to various organizations, but then they have a VC arm called Doen, Doen, participaties, which is for venture, the Dutch word for venture. They might actually be an interesting partner for that. They have other lotteries in other countries other than the Netherlands, but it's grown very big. Um,
Mm,
so they give grants to like Amnesty International, annual grant, large amounts. They have an award ceremony where they, get to that, but they also invest in startups in various.
mm,
So take a look at DOEN dot or DoonFoundation.nl and
mm.
check them out. They might be interested. Do you have a particular sector focus of, I mean, the two largest employers in the world are often not the most sexy for investors, which is small scale agriculture and hospitality. But small scale agriculture is about 1.3, 1.4 billion people working there, and hospitality is about 340 million working there. And not, unfortunately, not everyone is going to be an AI coder or an HTML coder to deal with all of the youth unemployment. Do you have any particular focus of sector?
So on our brand partnerships, we focus on the brand areas that young people love and shop in. So we're talking
Hmm.
about beauty, we're talking about gaming, we're talking about apparel. We're also, really interested in places like fintech that are trying to connect to younger consumers. So certainly a place like hospitality is really interesting, particularly some of the places, I'm thinking about, in Amsterdam, we got bookings.com, Airbnb, places that young people shop and engage with.
How can those who are listening live and those that will listen to the podcast, how can we help you?
Um, so rivet.org is our website, and you can read more about what we're doing. There are opportunities to sign up to stay involved. If you see a fit with something that you care about, whether it's a philanthropist, whether it's as a firm, whether it's as a brand, I'm Eric.Dawson@rivet.org. Right now, we are building a really exciting, interesting global community of people who are early adopters who care deeply about access, and people who are not transactional, but
Mm,
relational,
yeah.
because we really are surrounding our young people with a loving community of mentors.
And if you know your big purpose is this, but how many entrepreneurs do you want to try to create in the next 5 years? You
So our goal in 10 to 15 years is to give 1 million young people that first yes.
okay?
And as you pointed out, they won't all be entrepreneurs. They all
No.
won't all be successful, right? But look, I learned maths growing up. I'm not a mathematician, but I use math every day. So think about all the tools you develop as when you start a venture. How do you work together as a team? How do you solve a problem? How do you make a pitch? Right? These young people are developing a critical set of skills they would never have access to, thanks to Rivet and our partners.
One other person that I need to introduce you to is a good, very dear friend of mine. He was hired by this billionaire in Indonesia. His name is Putra Sampurna, very wealthy man. He had a big tobacco industry, sold it, got rid of it, and he met my friend and he said, I want to create 1 million social entrepreneurs in Indonesia. So he funded Thierry Sanders and helped build this peer-to-peer lending platform to help startups and, tuk-tuk drivers and other home delivery stuff. Then COVID hit and, things didn't work out and he left. But the model it was focused only on Indonesia with the ambition of 1 million entrepreneurs in Indonesia. So I'll connect you with him because the peer-to-peer lending thing still works. I mean, the software is there. Carmen had another question. You mentioned beauty, gaming, and apparel. Do they need to be prospects that are regenerative, meaning that they support life? I don't think you're focused more on supporting death, so I would imagine that you're quite focused on life, but you can answer the question now.
Well, I think Carmen, what I hear you focused on is how do we select our brand partners? Because there are brands out there that are better or worse for the planet and for humans than others. It's interesting as I was building Ribbon, I talked to a ton of young people, and this generation is different. They will cancel or promote brands based on their social practices. They care about the places where they're spending their money. It is a difference within Gen Z. Um, I was talking to a young person, and what he said to me, he said, Eric, if you can't be pure, be honest.
Yeah.
I was like, it's a really interesting way to think about it. So, we look for brands that are generally good for the world. And so there are brands that we won't partner with. And we also know that few people are perfect. So we are pretty generous in that evaluation. One of the most important things that we set up at Rivet is what we call our Rivet Assembly. So the Rivet Assembly is made up of a group of young people from around the world. They sign off on any brand partnership that we want to do. So I can put together a multi-million-dollar deal with Adidas. This group can veto it. They've got decision rights over any partnership that we want to do. So we really use this group of young creatives to help us get clear about who we would partner with and who we won't. I will say in general, I want to create a big tent with Rivet. I don't want to be a niche organization. I want to move a ton of capital. So this is not an anti-capital platform. This is not a
Mm.
purity test. And we are building our brand on the back of other brands. And so who we build with, who we partner with will really matter at the end of the day.
I don't know. I put a link. There was an absolutely brilliant commercial for Adidas, which they never used, unfortunately. And it was about mental health. It was about an elderly man who was a great runner. And he was now in an old age home and treated with lots of medicine to keep him quiet. And he just wanted to go running, and they kept blocking him. So you should watch that video. It's absolutely brilliant, but they felt it was kind of a bit depressing seeing
Mm,
this old guy in the old age home. But it's absolutely super inspiring. It's called Break Free, um,
mm,
and you should take a look at that. Uh, I'm very impressed with what you're doing because I know it's everybody sees the end result on the website and all these people, but there were thousands of conversations to get to there. It's everybody wants to cut the ribbon, but not too many people actually want to grab the shovel and dig the hole and do the work. But they all want to, have a selfie, toast to champagne, and cut the ribbon and take the credit. So can I
mm,
have to congratulate you on doing this for so long because it is often quite thankless and it sometimes thinks, oh man, this is like rolling a stone up the hill where people have put oil slicks on there and then they tied ropes around me to pull me back down. So
yeah.
I admire the perseverance. And if there's anything that we can do to help you, and hopefully this will reach a lot of people, Sam will process it and um, create an audio introduction and then post it for the our podcast publication probably next week when we send out the weekly, which goes to about 65,000 readers. And the video will be on there, and I'll send you the link for that you can share with anyone. But also, Carmen is a member. She's part of the TBLI circle. So you can just look up Carmen and send her private chats in the circle. You can, it's kind of like Facebook without the junk. So there's nobody following you or tracking you. There's no ads or anything like that. And you can access all of the masterclass that we ever did. So we'll be posting also this on the circle. So congratulations on doing this and staying the course uh, because it's I think you've worked out a good model. If you've got all of these partners, you can really, scale quite a bit. I prefer, I know, even though I'm very focused on sustainable investment, I tend to gravitate toward more irresponsible investors and criminals, the Donald Trump types, because they're very predictable and they have a better sense of humor and they have more money. Unfortunately, a lot of the impact investors talk a lot, but don't always do as much as they talk. So
Mm,
that's why I just prefer mainstream investors and just tell them you want a financial return with a social environmental added value. Nobody says, oh no, I want all my money to make life miserable for everyone. I'm working at that 24/7. They just don't know that they can do both. It's just really education. So congratulations on doing this and also taking the time to talk with us. And I will send you though that information about Thierry, what he did in Indonesia.
mm.
He's no longer with that, but he still has, relation there. And the coffee guy in Kenya.
Wonderful. Robert, thank you. Carmen, thanks for listening in. Thank you for the questions. And I look forward to getting some trouble together.
Yeah, you stay well. And if you're around, either of you, Carmen uh, or Eric, we have our virtual mixer tomorrow at 4, well, it's 10 a.m. Eastern time. I'm not sure in Ecuador what time that would be, but it's 4 p.m. Amsterdam time. You're both welcome. The link is on in the TBLI Circle events page. Stay well. Speak soon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye, Carmen.